Today, I want to talk about nature and how far removed from nature we've become as a species, as a race, as human beings. In the wild, every other animal lives their lives according to the dictates of nature, according to the rise and fall of the tides, according to the revolutions of the sun, according to the circles of the moon. Apart from humans, humans have just removed themselves so far from nature that we're just walking around wearing nylon and talking on cell phones and pretending like we are synthetic beings on this foreign organic earth rather than being an integral part of nature. And this is not just mistakenly. It wasn't as a result of modernization or civilization. This was done intentionally. You see, to exploit a land, you first have to break the human connection to it. You first have to make human beings forget that they are part of nature. That's why every colonial struggle has always been not just about land, but about exploitation of land. And you cannot co-opt people into destroying their land. And so you have to eradicate them. It's not really like they cannot tolerate the people on the land. It's because they want full access to the resources of the land. I'm not downplaying the part that racism and white supremacy plays in colonialism, but it's always about access to natural resources, knowing that the people want to not just have access to those resources, but also to have access in a way that is custodial and conservatory to those resources, and not just an outright exploitation that has brought us to the brink of crisis. The modern human today is really only connected to nature in two ways. First is just by night because it's dark and we have to sleep. And second is the female monthly cycle. Just because these are the only avoidable unavoidable ways. But we forget that in nature, everything is determined by nature. Migratory patterns are determined by nature. Reproductive patterns are determined by nature. Mating patterns are determined by nature. Almost every animal lives its life according to the dictates of nature. But we are only connected to nature in those two ways. Okay, I'll say three ways because we farm according to the seasons. But even now, there's artificial farming where you can grow things in greenhouses and defy the natural cycles. I want to explain in just one way how this entire white supremacist, this patriarchal system has been designed to break our bonds with nature. Because in order to exploit the environment and mine it for your ores and your minerals on this vast, unsustainable scale, you first have to break the indigenous people's connection and ties with nature, to sever their custodial ties, and to corrupt their minds with the allure of these trinkets that are the fruits of capitalism. Now, every civilization that has come before us, all the great civilizations, from the Igbo culture, the Nok culture, the Zulu culture, the ancient Indian and Egyptian cultures, Mesopotamian cultures, they have always used the lunar calendar as a way of measuring time and seasons and days. The aberration that is the Gregorian calendar was only just recently foisted on humanity and is part of the colonial project. In my culture, the Igbo culture, right, we've always used the seven weeks in a month, 13 months, and 4 days in a week. That's according to the lunar calendar. How convenient is it that the Gregorian calendar that has been foisted on us by the Catholic Church has is so perfectly suited to capitalism. So 5 days to work, one day to rest, one day to go to church. Just making sure that everyone is busy enough, fatigued enough, and engaged enough to not have time to think about the systems and why they are the way they are. Now, in my culture, we celebrate New Year, which marks the beginning of a new season, which will be probably spring in the West. That's when we celebrate New Year, and so this usually falls around March, between the end of March and the beginning of April, according to when the moon is sighted. And even in the West, the New Year comes during winter. How is the year new when everything is still dead and in the ground and frozen? There's no new life. So this Gregorian calendar really has nothing to do with anything. It's just all made up to make sure that we are as far removed from our natural circles and our natural connections and affinities with the planet as possible. But what does this mean? I think as the world starts to shift, to move away from these exploitative systems, I think we are going to have to reclaim the very essence of our nature. I'm not saying that for capitalism to die, that all trade and commerce will stop. Our ancestors, our forefathers, we used to trade as well, sometimes by with currency, but a lot of times by barter. It was predicated on the well-being of people, not in amassing wealth, which has led to the exploitation really of the planet. And so we have to rethink about our connection and our affinity with nature as we go forward, as we try to deconstruct these systems and to decolonize just everything about how we live in the modern time. But first of all, we must realize that we are natural beings. We are not separate from nature. We are part of nature. We are evolved from nature. We are no different than all the other beasts and all the plants who grow up. Our hair grows to the sun. Like we are no different from them. Nothing we eat should be inorganic or made from inorganic materials or should be synthetic. We are natural beings and we are connected to the planet. Our health and our well-being is connected to the health and well-being of the planet. We are farmers and gatherers, living in this artificial made-up world of concrete structures and cellular communications. If you could communicate with an animal, any animal, what would you say a social media manager was? Or an investment bank? How would you describe these vocations to them? I'm not saying civilization doesn't mean that we have to evolve our ways of living or our lives. Not only are we hunters and gatherers and farmers, we are also artistic. We are supposed to express our existence in ways that are pleasing to human, to the spirit and nurturing to the spirit. Not pushing about numbers on a computer. Like it's bizarre. This is what that's what Albert Camus calls the absurd when you think about it. Now, how do we recover from this devastation of capitalism? I think while we wait for these systems to evolve or to be totally deconstructed, I think we can take small steps, even now, to start changing our minds, start shifting our mindset about capitalism and our relationship with nature. The first step I think we can take is first of all moving to preserve some of this information. A lot of our parents and grandparents are already dying away, and they're dying away with knowledge that is going to be crucial for how we relate to the earth and to the planet going forward. So go outside, go to your villages, talk to your grandparents, talk to your elders, learn these methods, know how to read the stars, learn the fishing seasons, the farming seasons, learn to walk the earth. If you are living in the city, I think we can even just rip out all our interlocking tiles, plant a garden in your city, in your house in the city. Start a fish pond, get a drum and start a fish pond. Understand, get closer, find ways of getting close to nature. When you are ready, purchase land. If you are feeling stuck in the system, go back to your village, purchase land, start a farm, start a poultry, start a fish pond business. Be close to nature, even in these artificial ways in which we interact with nature. There's still utility, I think, in starting a poultry farm as free range and as natural as possible. Start a fish farm, start a small garden. And on a larger scale, I think the way we dismantle these systems eventually is going to mean land back to indigenous people, because the quickest way to restorative justice on the planet, I think, is through restoring the custodial ties and the custodial relationships that indigenous people have with the land. On a national scale, we have to destroy these capitalistic measures of productivity, like the GDP or the GNP. The primary responsibility of every government should be about growing enough food for the well-being and sustenance of their local population. Even if we're going to use the economic comparative advantage of nations, you grow enough of what you can grow in your locality to be able to exchange for those that you cannot grow. Thirdly, I think we have to decolonize our minds on what luxury is. We have to stop this out of control consumerism. The odds are you do not need more clothes. Stop buying clothes that you don't need. Stop acquiring things that you don't need. If you have a TV today or you have a phone that is still working, don't buy another one because it's the latest one. Like, we have to stop this feeding of this consumerist machine. We just have to stop being complicit with capitalism in this voracious consumption that gives capitalism the go ahead to keep producing these useless things that nobody needs. Like, capitalism has just eaten itself so much, I think, that we've come around in circles. That we're now trying to rebrand the natural things they told us were things of savages. We're now rebranding them as rare. So, get this original handmade leather bag. But these are the bags and sandals and things that you were buying from your local aboki. You know, who got the leather? From his cousin who rears cattle, or from his own cattle as well. We have to shun excess and shame overindulgence. You don't need more clothes or shoes. The chances are that what you have is enough. Our personal consumption matters, and it's this overbuying that ensures that capitalism is focused and justified in this unsustainable growth and production. We've messed up the world for ourselves and for the other inhabitants of our planets. Like, with the amount of species that we lose every year from exploitation of this planet is mind-boggling. Our greed means that every year almost 10,000 species go extinct on this planet from the exploitation of the ecosystem, from cutting down forests, from dredging rivers, from digging up the earth for resources. We can't continue like this, and we don't have to wait for the announcement that capitalism is over before we start reorganizing our society. The things we do now, the habits that we change now, are the things that will help bring about the fall or restructure of the worst parts of this economic system.